3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050, WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side, and joining us as they do every single week for the MGoBlog Roundtable. It's the MGoBlog Crew. Starting off with the triumphant return of Mr. Brian Cook. BC, we missed you last week, man. How you doing?
Good. If my power goes off, I want everyone to raid DTE.
Yeah, I didn't call it. I was going to be doing the show from home this morning. I got up to go on with Joe Simon, and my cable was out. So I had to come in this morning, so I'm feeling your pain, man. Seth Fisher, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. Brian's power was out last week, so I had to do all his work for him.
And Craig Ross. Craig, I keep getting questions. Responses about your stories, and they said, "Oh, can we have story time with Craig Ross?" I said, "He gives us I don't even have to prompt him. He gives us a story every single week. We'll get it on the MGoBlog Roundtable. How are you today?"
I'm doing fine, actually. My story today is I just woke up 2 seconds ago because I'm in Kona and my alarm didn't go off. So anyway, I apologize. The one thing I would like to mention is today there's a basketball watch along, and Brian and David and Alex did a hockey lot watch along a couple weeks ago, and as unlikely as that seemed, it seemed to work out really well. I found it very enjoyable. So
yeah, these will be my last moments as a free man if the refereeing goes a certain way. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, well, I know Brian hasn't been enthusiastic about it, but I encourage it. It was very amusing. And I also want to shout out to Dr. Ben Kaplan. I probably wouldn't be alive except for him. So thanks, Doc. Anyway, I don't have a great story today. I'll have a story next week, but I don't have a great story today.
Hey, people are loving. They say good hair day for you, Craig. That's what they're saying.
Thanks.
That's what they're saying,
sure,
man.
I look great.
Hey, look. So, Brian, the watch-alongs, I imagine, for this team, whether you're watching with your MGoBlog citizens, if you will, or just sitting watching yourself, it's been a painful experience at times. But these last 3 games, it's like a switches flip because lo and behold, all of a sudden, Michigan is actually finishing. They're actually closing out games.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I've noticed for just my own personal emotions about the team is that I've been saying nice help sort of involuntarily 3 or 4 times a game, which was not happening earlier in the season. So you have, I think, a better team awareness of when guys need help, when to help. And I think playing Terrace Reed more just helps out defensively because he's a guy who, when he comes to the for help side defense, he's not trying to take a charge. He's going to erase your shot. And so, Michigan's pulled away late in, a couple games, and then they had some real bad refereeing luck, plus a banked in 3 that put them behind the 8 ball against Wisconsin. Then they got a little bit of luck themselves with the Hunter 3, and then in overtime they handled their business. So yeah, I mean, after the first Wisconsin game, I remember watching that game and I was just like, why am I watching this? I know exactly what's going to happen. And then the thing that always happened. So, you never want to leave a team for dead, even though I obviously did. It's over. But now they're on the bubble, and if they win at Illinois, I think even if they lose at Indiana, you're going to see them go into the Big Ten tournament with a chance at getting in at 1-1, and then a pretty good chance at 2-1.
Mm-hmm. So, Seth, the scenario, it's a tie game with 4 minutes to go against Michigan State. It's a 6-point game with 4 minutes to go against Rutgers. They're down, with seconds to go against Wisconsin, and they finished they lose these games early in the season. These last 3, they figured out a way.
Yeah, I admit actually that I'm the only Michigan fan on the planet who thought that Hunter Dickinson's shot was not going to go in. I was like, there's just no way. I know everybody else believed, but I was positive, just like I was positive this team was out. And it's been a little bit like that, but you want to talk about what play happened at those moments, right? Well, Michigan State drives. Michigan needs to stop. We got to close this game out. They get past their guy, right? Doug gets beat by AJ Hogard. He's into the lane, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like Mike Sainristil still in the end zone, it comes the hand of Terrace Reed just to like pop that against the backboard, right? And that's been the difference. Reed's been in more. Jett's defense, I think, after the Wisconsin game started coming around more. I don't know, maybe he had a
He hasn't played the last couple games.
Yeah, but he and then
in the Michigan State game, though, I felt him more defensively in that game than any game all season.
That was the point. And then I mean, they've been doing it without Jett, but like, Baker's not really that much of an upgrade defensively over him, and even offensively, Baker's a little bit lost. So it really hasn't been coming from them. It's been Doug McDaniel's been coming along. He's more of a defensive pest, but he's enough of a defensive pest that it's that he's now a plus defensively. Where I think earlier in the season, especially right after Llewellyn went out and Doug was all of a sudden the guy that was a big hole in the defense, and having him and Jett out there, both of them lost at the same time, was just killing us. So when Brian talks about like where's the help coming from and everything, like that's important. Doug really hasn't gotten there offensively yet. He's making his shots, but I don't think he sees everything. But defensively, this team is completely turned around. They were just abysmal defensively, and now they're meh defensively.
Craig, look, Terrace, we talked a lot about Terrace, right? We've obviously Hunter is the key cog in the wheel. We'll get to him coming up and his shot. Of course, Doug McDaniel, who I want to stress more, but I feel like I want to lead in with you talking about Kobe, because I feel like you're my kindred spirit on Kobe Bufkin.
Yeah.
Thinking that he was going to be a guy, and he is looking like a guy right now, Craig Ross.
Yeah, I know. You and I were both positive on Kobe and thought Kobe was going to be a really good player last year. And it just took some time for it to come around. The thing that really appealed to me about Kobe was when I talked to him at Media Day this year. I asked him, well, what is it going to, what are you going to do to have to stay on the court so you can have, and he went right back. I think I mentioned this, to the old Larry Bird thing, that you have to have the right to miss. If you don't have the right to miss, you can never really reach your potential on shooting the ball. And I said, well, what do you need to do to have the right to miss? And he says, I got to play defense. He goes, my defense was terrible last year, and I've got to be able to come along and play defense and stay on the court, and then other things will come along. And man, did he nail. Was he self-aware, and did he nail exactly, where he needed to go and where in fact he's gone? And he's not a great defender, but he's becoming a competent one. And his offense is really coming along. The sad thing, I don't know if it's sad, it's, as a fan, selfishly, it's sad, is I'm afraid he's going to end up in the NBA next year. And the one, and the one thing, I guess the one thing you can say is he's young. He's actually, I think Sam pointed this out, younger than Doug.
Younger than Jett.
Or younger than Jett, not Doug. Mm-hmm. Younger than Jett. So he's not he is quite young, and he still is pretty skinny. But I don't know. But his offense has just come along. And his shot mechanics are beautiful. He's a smart player. He's really just about everything you want at the college level as a basketball player. The question is, how long is he going to be at the college level?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need him to stay at this level, but if he stays at this level, the NBA scouts are gonna be even more enticed. He's starting to sneak into draft mentions. I think The Athletic, I think they're the only ones that had him in a first round mock. But here's the thing, fellas. I mean, if it's, if we just base it on basketball stock, if that's the only criteria we're looking at, you can make the case that if Kobe Bufkin comes back next year, I kind of see this along the same lines as you remember Jaden Ivey his freshman year.
Yeah.
If he had gone in the draft, he would have been maybe a late first round pick, maybe, second round at worst, but maybe late first round. You come back and you're a lottery pick. And I don't think that that's ridiculous to say. If Kobe Bufkin comes back, he can go from being maybe your first round pick to you're talking about him as a lottery pick next year. Does that seem outlandish to you, Brian?
No, not at all. I mean, one thing that we were all talking about early in the season is that, well, the shooting isn't there for him, but it should come, right? And he's up to 37% from 3 in Big Ten play, but that's only on 59 attempts. So, like, for a guy like Bufkin, who's not, 6'8", he's going to probably have to put some more attempts on tape for that to be like a real solidified skill. And that's something that Jaden Ivey was able to do his second year at Purdue. He was very much not a shooter as a freshman, added that to his game, and that had the result of his draft stock blowing up. And then, I mean, Bufkin has people have been talking about how Michigan is a top 15 team in Bart Torvik if you just look at the month of February, and that's like 82% Kobe Bufkin. So Kobe Bufkin's O ratings in the month of February are all 107 or better, and all but 2 are 123 or better. And 123 is like national player of the year caliber O rating there. And his usage isn't off the charts, but he is hitting a couple of games, particularly this most recent one against Wisconsin, where he's hitting 30, which is, big time KenPom player of the year level stuff. So that's a solid month where he's been maybe the best player on the team, maybe one of the best players in the Big Ten. So if you're able to get him back next year, that's a really awesome piece to build around, especially because, as we mentioned, he's so young. So he's following that Karras track, and I would like to see Junior Karras, because I didn't get to see Junior Karras for very long. But what I saw of Junior Karras was really excellent. So, I feel like I hope Michigan can get him back. I think everything that people say about Kobe Bufkin, like there was a broadcast where they were talking about, he had to, like, Juwan had to sit down with Kobe and be like, all right, we don't want you to transfer. He's like, I'm not going to transfer. I understand that I shouldn't be playing given the way that I'm playing right now. I'm like, damn. And the story that Craig just told, right? This is a kid with his head on his shoulders. And so I don't think he's necessarily going to leap if someone says that you can be the number 30 pick in the draft, because I think given his youth and his runway, yeah, he can Jaden Ivey next year. So that's my pitch to stay in school. Then the other guy,
one small correction. He's actually shooting 37.5% in the Big Ten games from 3. So it's not 35, it's 37.5, and there's a big difference on that. And he is will become a better shooter than Jaden Ivey. I mean,
the difference is that he's taking shots that are contested. When's the last time he actually got one of those open? Right? Like, I don't necessarily. More than most guys are.
I mean, the guy who's taking contested threes is Doug. So Doug's at 35% in Big Ten play, and if you hop over to hoopmath.com, under half of his threes are assisted. So, that's a guy who's doing good work on pull-ups, and that's been another, I think, major factor, is that Doug McDaniel has gone from an offensive liability to a guy who's got a 105 rating in Big Ten games. And he's also on an upward trend. It's not quite as long as Kobe's. It's not quite as consistent as Kobe's. But he's a guy who's gone from, I don't know what happens when he shoots, to like, okay, that's a 17-footer from Doug on a pull-up. That's probably okay. Which I did not expect going in. I mean, he's still terrible at the rim, and he's still not seeing a lot of things that he needs to see. But just in terms of, like, can you get away with having a freshman point guard like Doug McDaniel? The answer has increasingly been yes.
Well, let me acknowledge the part that I didn't see. If we were talking about the things that maybe he misses, what I missed watching Doug McDaniel is seeing him being able to play at the level that he's playing right now. I thought he could be a good college player, but he's he's been in these last 3 games playing like, one of the most improved players in the Big Ten over the course of the year, maybe the most improved player in the Big Ten over the course of the year. And 3-point shooting, pull-up shots. I mean, actually playing some semblance of defense. I admit, I didn't see him being able to play at this level at all, let alone as a freshman.
Well, I mean, his shot has been developing. So when he committed to Michigan, he was not much of a shooter. And then his senior year in high school, he started, developing that pull-up. Still not something that people thought was very consistent. And it looks like that's going to be a part of his game going forward. And his defense is, I'm not going to call it good, it's erratic. But when he gets locked in on a guy, like there have been times where opposing point guards have just not been able to initiate offense because of Doug McDaniel. And that's not consistent yet, but you can see the potential there. You can see the upside.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Martelli has said several times that he's just a pest, and he's the kind of guy you don't like to play against. I went back because I said this before and then felt stupid about it. That I didn't think that, or I felt that Doug's numbers were reasonably comparable to Trey Burke's numbers in his first year. If you just look at the Big Ten games, and that seems stupid, but I went back and looked at it and thought, it's not that far off. In fact, Doug's numbers.
No, why are we having this?
Why are we going back to this?
Well, I just want to point out that they keep getting closer and closer, except that Doug steals the ball a lot more than Trey did. And his assist turnover ratio.
I remember Trey stealing the ball a little bit too, though.
No,
that was more of his.
The numbers aren't The numbers aren't there. The numbers show that Doug steals the ball almost twice as much as Trey did, and his assist turnover rate is better than Trey's right now. His freshman year if you look at freshman year in the Big Ten, and rebounds are equal. And free throw shooting the same. The only place where Trey has him, of course, is 3-point shooting, which is about 2.3% better, and of course, shooting at the rim. There's no question about that. That Trey was better at the rim than Doug, but he's getting there, and the good news is we're going to have him for a couple of years, hopefully, unless he does some crazy thing like Frankie did. And I'm not really expecting that. I mean, I've talked to Doug too. I find him to be a very sensible guy with a good head, and so I mean, I love this backcourt. I love it right now, what they're doing, and you got to give credit to Howard Isley. You got to give credit to the kids that this backcourt was a mess, and now it isn't. Now it's really, really good. So,
all right. So now I think it's reasonable to expect, guys, and we'll start with you on this, Seth, that Jett will be back, right? He's jumping around when Hunter's 3. Before his 3 even goes down, he's up off the bench, and then he's hopping around looking like I'm ready to go. But you hop back in a moment where look how Doug's playing, look how Kobe's playing, look how the team is playing defensively. You need Jett to pick up where he left off in that Michigan State game where he didn't shoot it well. I don't mean that, but I just felt like that was maybe his best all-around effort, considering he wasn't shooting it well, but he was playing defense. He was rebounding the basketball. If he can do that coming back, now we're talking about something. But he can't be the early season kind of, let me jack guy this time.
Jett knows the NBA well enough to know that they're comfortable drafting guys who need to develop something in their game, because NBA teams believe they're going to teach him. Jett he's really easy to call. If he's a lottery pick, I think he's going to go. If he's not a lottery pick, I don't think it makes any sense for him to go. Bufkin is the one I think that you need to come up with the NIL package.
I think he just meant like he'll be back for the next game.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, I thought we were talking next year.
No.
They were talking about him warming up and stuff, and they kind of the camera kept on going to him like, "Is he coming in?" I'm like, "He's not coming in, guys. If he's not in yet, he's not coming in." But yeah, that does kind of change things a little bit, but he's not been. I mean, his Michigan State performance was better, but better and good are very, very long distance.
Yeah, look. Craig was talking about Kobe as a defender, and how he's he's locked in and he's doing a better job there. He's the best defensive player on this team, and that's a dubious distinction, right? And so I get it. We're talking about relative. We're talking about relative assessments here, but this squad is playing better on the defensive end of the floor than they played early in the season. I think a lot of it has to do with focus. And that's what I'm getting to with Jett. I think he was more locked in defensively against Michigan State. And that's what he has to be coming back where I think it's going to be glaring to not just the coaches, but to his team really, really going at it harder on that end of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate the coach's son looks like the least coached guy we've had here in a long time, but it's been focused, right? And especially like that Michigan State game, he was one of those few games where he wasn't getting his shot, right? Like State was taking him away. And in those situations, the Wisconsin game before that at Wisconsin was a good example. When you took him away, he would kind of lose focus on the other end too, right? Like if you could shut him down there, he'd get a little frustrated. I think he would just not be boxing out. And a lot of those offensive rebounds are not necessarily the center's problem. It's somebody flying in and causing an issue and tipping it out of his hand. And I thought a lot of that was Jett not getting his guy on those opportunities too.
Well, I mean, I think the Wisconsin game was a real come to Jesus moment for the whole team.
I do too. You're 100% right. You're 100% right.
They got crushed on the boards by the least athletic team in America. Like, come on.
Yeah.
you could tell listening to the coaches after that first, they were getting up like, look, that's on. I'm the head coach. What we just did out there is unacceptable. That was Jawan. And then Phil Martelli came on that week. He was like, hey, that's a team outworking us. We got outworked at Wisconsin. We can't have that. So clearly, if they're out publicly saying that, they were cracking some heads in practice. And then the team responded versus Michigan State, which is who out physicals Michigan State on the glass. And that's what happened in that game. So I definitely think that was a response to coaching, but specifically about Jett, is it that he's the least coached or is it that he's a freshman? Because to me, watching Jett, he looks a lot like Kobe looked as a freshman, where they could actually take Kobe off the floor. Like, it's like, you don't play like that defensively, you can't play. You can't take Jett off the floor.
No,
like, who are you going to put in for him when he's not playing defensively? You just got to ride it out.
Yeah, and I think.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, and I think when you do get Jett back, I think that opens up the ability to play Terrace at the 4 more, right? Because he is by far your best defensive option there. And with a Joey Baker in the lineup there, you don't really have a third scorer. Doug, I don't know if he counts like that yet, but you've got Kobe and you have Dickinson. And I don't really know if you can survive with, Terrace at the 4 there. But with Jett on the floor, I think you can, especially because Hunter Dickinson's up to 40% from 3. So if you want to float him out to the perimeter and change those spacing issues, you can do that. So, I mean, I hope that we see more of that going forward, because I think sort of the emergence of Terrace as a viable option next to Dickinson has also been a reason that the season has turned around quite a bit in the last month.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. On the rebounding issue, I went back and watched the Wisconsin game because the first one, because I expected to see that there was a lot of funky stuff, balls clank, the ordinary Wisconsin luck, ball clanking here, clanking there, going into a place where it was difficult to rebound. But no, I didn't see that. What I saw was one of those, when a ball kicked into the corner in Michigan on a terrible shot, and Michigan really had no opportunity. Michigan just didn't play hard on the boards in that game, and that's just the fact. And it changed completely in the Wisconsin game, the second Wisconsin game, and most notably in the Michigan State game, where Michigan was better on the boards than Michigan State. And of course, that's something that Izzo sort of prides himself on, is having his team being tough and physical pushing you around and out rebounding you, and State just didn't do it in that game. So something's happened there where Michigan is paying more attention on the boards. In terms of Jett, I mean, how do you keep him out of the lineup when he is a phenomenal shooter? But maybe the little bit of defense we saw before he got hurt, because there were a couple possessions where he looked good at, and maybe that'll begin to translate, and all of a sudden this team will sort of piece together.
If it doesn't, I think the guys on the team will be the ones, because his dad has been on his head. So that's the thing that sticks out to me. Like, he's always yelling at Jett, like always yelling at Jett. And you wonder as his son if Jett kind of tunes that out, like, hey, that's just Pops. Right? but when your teammates do it, you maybe it hits a little different. If that happens, if he gets into some possessions where he isn't as locked in as some of the other guys, maybe that won't even be an issue based on the way that he was playing in the Michigan State game and how they're playing as a team right now. But let's close out this segment, this basketball segment, because I want to segue or transition into another topic on the other side. How did they finish out the regular season, guys? This Illinois team is a bit of an enigma. They can be one of the most explosive teams in the country, or they can go out and lose to an Ohio State team that's like 1-14 in their last 15. So what do you make of this Illinois squad? And then Indiana, how do you see that game playing out? Let's start with you, Brian.
Well, it sounds like Jaden Epps, who's their starting point guard, may not play. Brett Under was talking about some sort of scary
concussion.
He had a concussion.
Yeah, it was a concussion
in practice, like yesterday or a couple days ago. So if he doesn't
in practice, just did the update. It was in practice on Tuesday. He was in the hospital overnight to yesterday, and then was released. And he's being cared by his parents who are in town, but he's under care at the moment. But that's
okay.
The that I got.
So he's not playing, I got to assume. And so that's a big blow for them, and they don't really have a backup for him. So they have a freshman point guard named Sincere Harris, who's 160 pounds at 6'4". And he's
last year Bufkin.
Well, he's not, but he's also terrible. So far, I mean, we're not making any judgments because people get better. So when he's out of the lineup, they have to play Terrence Shannon more or less as a point guard. So this could really break down into a lot of ISO ball for Illinois, and they are big, they're huge, especially if Epps is out. They're bringing in one of their 6'6" wing guys that they have on the back end, so that might be a problem for Doug. But also, they don't really have someone to match up with Dickinson's size. I can't believe this guy's name is Dane Danger.
But I thought it was Dainja, but
okay, but I don't know how to pronounce it. But it looks like he's got like a rapper's name, like I'm Danger. He's 6'9", so he's a big boy, so he might be able to hold up on the block, but he's not going to affect Dickinson's shot.
He's like an offensive lineman. You see him out there. He looks like Jake Long.
Yeah, who was the guy for the Pistons back in the day? Just like a big guy. I don't remember.
Oh, but gosh,
well,
not Mahorn.
Oliver.
What air? They had Oliver Miller for a minute.
Oliver Miller. There you go.
Yeah,
that's it. But so I mean, Shannon's good, and I think it's going to be real frustrating whenever he makes a shot. But I think that they're ripe for the taking. I'm not saying Michigan should be favored in this game in any way whatsoever, but as the season's gone along, they've been scuffling the last month. They're 3-4. They've lost to Iowa, Penn State, Indiana, and as mentioned, Ohio State. All of those were road games. They've won all their home games, but one of those is like a 4-point win over Northwestern. They beat Rutgers by 9. So this is a team that can struggle offensively, and then Michigan's ability to make some shots, if they can make shots, can neutralize some of their defense, especially if Jett is back and he's just able to shoot over their length.
There was another medical update from Illinois yesterday, just to pass this along. I don't know what this means, to be honest. I assume he'll be fine by tonight, but Matthew Mayer met with the media yesterday as well, and he said he had been sick the previous few days with quote-unquote caffeine poisoning.
Right.
He said
Oh, yeah.
Monster Energy
He had 5 Monster Energy drinks in a
After
day.
he lost to Ohio State, he apparently OD'd on caffeine after that loss. He was very upset about it and played video games.
He was
And he
terrible
was
in
not
that
back into practice until yesterday, though.
Wait. Raise your hand here if after a loss to Ohio State, you didn't drink yourself stupid and play video games for 5 days.
game.
Okay.
Especially
And
this
Who
Ohio
among
State
us?
team.
Touche.
Completely understandable, but if you drink 5 Monster Energy drinks in a day and you don't die, you are immortal. So at least Matthew Meyer has that going for him.
So I'm curious. Hey,
Get
look,
away
he
with
was
it.
terrible in Ohio State. You would think he would want to go to sleep after that contest. He was bad against Ohio State. Hopefully, he's that bad against Michigan. But how do you, Craig, see these
Well,
last two
it's,
games?
you
playing?
know, Illinois is a team I really blew and have blown in terms of perception all year. At the beginning of the year, I thought they would never be able to fit all these stray parts together because the team is all transfers coming from here and there. And then Sky Clark, their 5-star point guard, left, or I don't know what happened to him. But then I saw him play. It was against a good team, either UCLA or Gonzaga or somebody early, and they just demolished them. And I thought, man, this team has really got it. But then as the season goes along, I watch them one game, they look great. I watched them with a game where they froze out Matthew Meyer. I mean, the rest of the team just wouldn't give him the ball. He's standing there alone. Forget it. He can't, they're not getting him the ball. I've seen games where Shannon, looks like Michael Jordan, and I've seen games where Shannon looks like me. I mean, so I just can't figure out what's going on with him, or if there's any way to predict what Illinois is going to look like in any particular game. They could come out and be great. They could come out and be dogs. I mean, they're a very difficult team for me to understand.
What a waste of Terrence
appreciate.
Shannon, man. Like, this team is just like I know you want to get into Indiana, but like Terrence Shannon's such a good player and like would just be the piece for Michigan.
Yeah.
And instead of like one good tournament team, we have 2 bubble teams basically. I know Illinois is in, but watching them, it's just so frustrating to watch Shannon and just the moops that they have around him right now.
Well, we'll see. So split. Sounds like you guys are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, at Indiana is going to be tough, but we should mention that Indiana has also been scuffling a little bit.
Yeah.
So they do have a couple wins over Purdue recently, but they lost to Northwestern, they lost to State, and then they just got cranked by Iowa. So, and they have a narrow win over Illinois recently, and then they have a 1-point win over Michigan. So that hill is not impossible to climb.
Well,
I'm going out on it's a flimsy limb. Very, very flimsy. Michigan's going to win both these games.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
No, I'm not going out on that limb. That's for sure.
Put him in the tournament.
I mean,
Games, man.
in the Iowa-Indiana game, that was just a stare down. I mean, that was a stare down. So
What is that mean?
Man who thinks Punter's 3 is going in.
Yeah. Well, look, we need to get to a break. Back on the other side, we'll get to some hockey, some football, to close things out on the MGoBlog Roundtable here on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, The Ticket.
And we are clear on the radio.
All right. Sounds like a plan, man. So, yeah, so I'm curious. We won't get to this on the radio portion, but 2 wins and they're in. Is 19 the magic number for all you guys as far as making the tournament?
2 wins, they're definitely in.
That includes the
I'm just talking
tournament.
2 wins period, like split now and then win one in the Big Ten tournament. They're in.
I think they could be on the bubble. Like, because if they split, they could be like the 3 seed, and then their first game is going to be against, I don't know, Nebraska, and that's probably not going to move the needle.
I got a really tall one. This is 20 ounces of Red Bull this morning. So no, but look.
You're gonna Matthew Meyer yourself.
Oh, he's having 1. It's 1. If you want to call it 2, because it's a large can, that's only 2.
It's
well
2,
short of 5.
It's 2 regular Red Bulls, but it's not close to 5.
What is that stuff? I don't even know. I've never had one.
It's like mainlining caffeine is what this is.
That's great.
Let me Craig Ross story this for a second. When I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and they had game day on campus. So Red Bull decides they're gonna announce themselves on Michigan's campus by giving the fraternity parties like these boxes and boxes of Red Bull. We didn't know what this stuff was. And things got really out of control. I mean, we were mixing it with vodka. We didn't know what we were doing. Like, we're just having them and having them and having them. And all of a sudden, the entire fraternity is just like the eyes bugging out of our heads.
What fraternity was that?
Phi Kappa Psi. I was not the favorite of Phi Kappa Psi. I was kind of like the dork they stuffed in his room during parties.
Yeah, I needed to pick me up. I don't have any Celsius left, no uptime, so I had to go by the gas station and get some Red Bull and make it go. But yeah, I think they're gonna win both these games. I think that the guard play has taken so much pressure off of Hunter. You know, it got to the point after that Indiana game where that's when I thought they were done, because he was so mentally defeated that, you know, he couldn't even hide it. And if he wasn't hiding it with the media, you know, he wasn't hiding it with the team. I was like, man, if he's having doubts, you know, the rest of the team is. And credit to him and credit to them, they were able to recover from that. So now that he's actually getting some help, some consistent help, and the up and down play that we see from Illinois and Indiana, I think they're going to do it, man.
He'll get those doubles again against Illinois for sure, because that's how Illinois plays. So it's going to be back to hack a Hunter, especially on the road next two games, man. But
now you got guys knocking down shots, though.
Yeah.
See, before he get doubled, he kick it out. No one, they can throw it in the freaking ocean. Now they're hitting shots. So we'll see how it goes. So what do you guys make of the Amarion Walker buzz from last week? You believe in the hype?
Saying that all along, right? That he's going to be.
I mean, wait. Look what Harbaugh is saying. Harbaugh admits that he needs some strength, right? And he's like, he's still got to hit the weight room. And he said, I'm ready to call him there now, but it's a projection. So what they're not saying that Amarion Walker right now is the second best cornerback after Will Johnson.
Yeah,
they're saying they're looking at their room saying,
yeah, that's exactly what he said.
That's exactly what he said.
No, he said I look through the quote and he's like, you know, this is a projection. Like, I think that's where he's going to be. I'm ready to call it now.
No.
He said after two practices, he's the starting quarterback.
Yeah, well.
Back on radio in about 30 seconds.
That is not a nice thing to say about the rest of the cornerbacks.
That doesn't disqualify what you're saying about him still needing work. Yeah. Like, he still needs work. They say he gets beat.
Yeah. Fortunately, he doesn't really have to be ready to go until November.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the schedule, there's a lot of learning time in there.
So we'll get to that. Get some hockey here coming up.
Count you guys in about 15 seconds or so. Stand by.
All righty. So I only have one Brighton Ford left, right? Gotcha.
That's another question. Okay.
Stand by, everybody. Back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTK.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub. On the other side, our friends at Brighton Ford want you to know they have the great deals that can't be beaten. 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. Make it on out and check out the 2022 Ford F-150 Super Crew. Still some left on the lot. You can get into one for $297 a month with $3,500 down, or $503 a month with $500 down. How about the 2023 Ford Edge SEL? $302 a month with $3,500 down, or $480 a month with $500 down. And last but not least, the 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, $365 a month with $3,500 down, or $584 a month with $500 down. For those and other great deals, get on board with Brighton Ford by going to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD or make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. So, fellas, spring is in the air. Now, no practice right now. Guys are out on spring break. Some decided to stay behind and stay on their grind. But through 3 practices, no pads, there's some early returns. Jim Harbaugh poured some gasoline on the Amarion Walker party last week when he said after 2 practices, he's the starting cornerback. Are you ready to believe the hype, even when it's the head coach saying it, or are you still tempering your enthusiasm, starting with you, Craig Ross?
No, he's gonna. I think Harbaugh's told us he's going to be the starting corner. I don't see the or the second guessing in that perhaps that Seth sees as self second guessing. But I see him saying, "Look, this guy's going to be our starting corner this year, and someone's going to have to come in and just do it, just beat him out." That's what I see. Now, maybe when Jair Hill comes in, he just kills it. But I think Seth pointed out last week that it isn't so easy to learn these positions, not like it used to be, perhaps. And so I think that Jair Hill may well play this year and be the third corner, perhaps. But I don't. I think at this point, pencil him in. He's the starting corner opposite Will Johnson. That's what I hear Harbaugh saying.
Now, Seth, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have work to do. I've heard guys say, yeah, he's swimming, but him swimming is different. That when he makes a mistake, he can actually recover on these plays because he's so long, he's so fluid, he's so fast and so athletic. Here's what we haven't heard yet, though, and it's impossible to hear it. We don't know what he is as a tackler because they haven't put on the pads yet. So there is that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tackle a little. I mean, Channing Stribling didn't manage to go through most of his career without learning how to tackle, so it's possible. But it's gonna be a thing. I think you have to parse words. Spring is always about hype, right? Spring is always about talking guys up, and they're gonna put things in the rosiest way possible. You have to ask yourself, are they saying Amorian Walker is so good that we have to play this guy? Or are they saying Amorian Walker is the best we've got at second cornerback? Now, they played the portal twice, and they came up empty. They tried to get Jamon, and they tried to get DJ to come back, and they came up empty. So, and then if this was happening at the end of spring practice, if it was okay, we got some guys, but we can't keep Amorian off the field, that would lean itself more to this guy's awesome. I think that the situation is a lot closer to this is the best we got. Now, schematically, it works. The way that you can play Amorian allows you to get away with not having to be as technical as they were last year. And I think that last year they had a situation where you got Jamon and Will Johnson, who's, they're one type of cornerback, and DJ Turner kind of gets beat over the top if you're kind of playing him up all the time. Both him and Will Johnson are huge cornerbacks. Mm-hmm. So you could probably just play Saban-style pattern matching all day because you got the length to get away with that. And that's why Saban likes that kind of cornerback, because they have the length and the speed to make up for those mistakes and the holes in that kind of defense. So maybe they can. I'm not saying Jesse Minter is going to simplify his coverages because he's a DB guy and he's not going to do that. But maybe scale it back a little bit from what you had with a bunch of seniors last year to what you have with these guys and just make things easier because you can just get away with that.
You believe in the hype, Brian?
I'm a guy who's been doing this for almost 20 years now, of trying to parse out what seems believable and what's not. And to have this so early, like 2 practices in, that is the kind of thing that tends to be more reliable when it's immediate, and it's just okay, this is a guy. Because once you hit fall practice and people start talking up weak spots on the team, then you're like, oh man, that sounds like Johnny Sayers to me. But for it to happen immediately, for it to be paired with something with that 3-cone drill, which even if it's hand timed, I guarantee you that Amorian Walker is going to be in that Bruce Feldman Freaks article this fall. And if that's even close to true, I mean, cornerback is a spot where athleticism is priority 1, 2, and 3. And we know Amorian Walker has great straight line speed. We know he's 6'4". If he has any change of direction that he's been hyped up to be, then yeah, I think I'm on board. Now the main concern here is that there really isn't a plan B, right? So who's he competing with? Who's he beating out? And I don't think McBurrows is back yet. And he's been on the shelf for a year, so I don't know how good you'd expect him to be immediately anyway. And then the rest of the options are freshmen, safeties, or guys
Harris, walk on.
Yeah, guys who haven't really broken through yet. That's kind of the main concern there, is if the reason that he's seemingly locked into the starter's job no, I wouldn't say that. He's got an edge on the starter job so early is because there's just really nobody else. But coaches are usually pretty reticent to hype up guys early in spring. So I'm on board.
And so glass half full, admittedly, on this is I just don't see them moving a guy with the kind of promise that they believe he has a wide receiver if he was moving for anything other than we think he can be the guy. That's number one. Number two, the players before the coaches were talking about Amarion Walker. They were like, man, this dude is an absolute freak. And so they were all over it. And then the other piece is he's not learning defense from zero. Granted, he didn't get the full playbook last year, but he at least got acquainted with it. He at least got familiar with some of the concepts. So, this is not one of those deals where you think he going into next year is going to just be completely swimming out of the gate. I think go ahead.
Well, and also you can, with his size, you can really dumb it down for him, right? Like with Will Johnson being 6'2" and Walker being 6'4", you can just play outside leverage on everything. And if they want to run a fade, God bless them.
Yeah.
Right. No doubt. So we'll see. But the glass half empty, I have no idea what he is as a tackler. Like zero. I haven't heard anything, nothing from high school. The only thing I can give you positive on that is I hear he's up to 192 pounds. So that at least makes you.
What was he last year? 154?
157 pounds. Right. So Brian,
wow.
coming in when he came in the winter, he was 157 pounds. Crazy. The hockey outlook, as things have not necessarily the last few games been as rosy as they were prior to that, handicapped this team as they head into the postseason.
Well, I mean, this weekend they just got games stolen by a really hot goalie. Bischel, Notre Dame's goalie, won those games for them flat out. And that's going to happen sometimes, and you don't want that to happen in the tournament. But just in terms of like how the teams played, I am not concerned about what happened against Notre Dame at all. Ohio State, a little bit more difficult. I mean, that's just a team that seems to have Michigan's number. They have a heavy forecheck, and it's been really hard for Michigan to figure it out. But Notre Dame, I mean, they outshot Notre Dame 27-6 in the third period of the Saturday game, and that's the best I've seen them look all season. And they seem to have, it's the first period, and they want to possess the puck, so they're not really shooting the puck very much. And they want to get really good opportunities, and sometimes you look at the shots after a period, and it's like, well, I mean, they got outshot by 3, but it doesn't really feel like that. And then I feel like they turned it on in that Notre Dame game because they were down, and they're like, okay, we need to put the puck on the net, and they were just swarming. And so I kind of feel like, I hope that's a lesson for them to learn, is like sometimes, just put it off the guy's pads, and then it's a chaotic situation. But they got Luke Hughes back on Saturday too, which is a big deal. So they didn't have Hughes for almost all of the last 2 weekends, and they lost Fantilli early in the Saturday game because he did something that is now pretty clearly a major, elbowed a guy in the head. He's got to draw that back, find a balance, because he was flying around the ice, he was hitting people, he was playing really well, and then he just took it a step too far. He's a freshman, he'll get better. But going into the playoffs, Wisconsin is a team that has some dangerous players but just doesn't play any defense, so Michigan should be able to ease by them. And because Ohio State got swept by Minnesota, they will have a home game if they make the semifinal. So, and then in terms of pairwise, these last couple of weekends really haven't cost Michigan at all. So they were third in pairwise 2 weeks ago, and they're fourth today. And that's because a lot of the teams chasing them have also had some struggles. So they're still in a really good position. They're probably it's more likely than not they're a 2 seed instead of a 1 seed. But if they can just get healthy and consolidate and maybe take honestly, having just one game the next couple weekends, maybe you can get Truscott back. Maybe you can get everybody fully healthy, and then we can finally see what this team looks like when everybody is full go.
Maybe go one game without taking a major with one of your players.
Well, that's not possible.
Yeah, that's gonna be. We'll have to cut it there, fellas. We are out of time. We appreciate all of you listening. We'll see you next time on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WT.